everyone, and welcome to this show. I'm Jenna Morton.
And I'm Tosh Taylor.
And we have a guest in studio again with us today, which is always so much fun. And Tosh, this is a guest that you're a bit more familiar with than I am, so I'm going to let you introduce us.
Well, I'm a huge fan of East ND here on Alma Street in Moncton. They have done amazing things for me and my body. And I wanted to, well, we've been alluding to it for a while, what this conversation was going to be, because we're middle-aged.
I like how you use like air quotes there. Like, no, we are.
No.
I am. I guess, I think you are not yet.
For me.
I don't think you technically fall into the official category yet, but I do.
Give it a year or two. We wanted to talk today about menopause and about, maybe natural solutions, how to know you're getting into menopause. So we've brought in Dr. Renee Purdy with us today. She works at East ND. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
So we're obviously very excited about this conversation.
And just before we get too far into it, for people who might not be familiar, can you give us a little bit about your background and your focus in health?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So I work as a naturopathic doctor. I've been working since 2014. Naturopathic medicine is a form of medicine where we'll use treatment, so natural treatment. So we'll look at lifestyle and nutrition, herbs, supplements, IV therapy, acupuncture, and the goal of our treatments is always to get to the cause, dig deep and figure out what's going on so we can treat that and help people restore their health, feel better, and resolve their symptoms rather than giving them a quick fix.
Perfect. Now, at East ND, you guys have a huge focus on women's health, but
yes, we do.
Obviously they deal with men as well, but they do have a big focus on women's health. So maybe how did you get into wanting to focus more on women and dealing with menopausal symptoms and such?
Well, I think one of the main reasons is I'm a woman myself, so I go through these things as well, so I can understand and relate a lot better. So for me, I think it's really important to be able to understand whoever I'm working with better. Of course, we're all different, we're all going to experience things differently, but there's a little bit of that relatability that we can have, knowing that our bodies are similar at the end of the day. So I think that's what attracts me a little bit more towards women's health, hormonal health, menopause, etc.
So when you talk about hormonal health, let's dive in there, because I know it's about more than just menopause. There's a lot around that, but that's certainly part of it. Talk a little bit more about what you mean by that.
So as we mentioned, we work with a lot of women, and a lot of women come in at all ages, from teens, women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they'll come in with different symptoms, either irregular menstrual cycles, really heavy periods, emotional changes around their period, infertility, menopausal symptoms, and we'll look to find what hormones are causing this, if it is indeed a hormonal imbalance. So when we're talking about hormones, in this case, we're talking mainly about estrogen and progesterone, which are our dominant sex hormones. Hormones include thyroid or insulin. There's a lot of other hormones that we do produce, but when we're talking about women's health and hormonal balance, we're looking at estrogen and progesterone, especially testosterone. We do produce testosterone as well, but we're looking at these mainly.
And is there like a particular balance that we're looking to have? Is that when you say you're looking at it, is that what's?
Yeah, we're looking to make sure that they're balanced in relative to each other. So sometimes what we'll see is that rather than having a balance like this, we'll see either maybe progesterone be really low, which will cause some symptoms, or sometimes progesterone is okay, estrogen is really high, which could cause some similar symptoms, or the opposite, we'll see really low estrogen. So we're looking at East ND, we really like to do in-depth testing. It really helps us focus and pinpoint what's going on. So we really like to get kind of deep into what's going on. Kind of a little bit of detective work there, So when we can see those levels, we're able to pinpoint, okay, look, your progesterone is low, so let's support that, and that to help your symptoms that way.
So obviously, menopause being a hormonal change, what differences do you see in our hormones when women start to go into menopause?
Yeah, so the perimenopausal time typically will start somewhere in 40s, mid 40s, around there. So what happens is that the ovaries will slowly start decreasing until they stop producing those hormones, estrogen and progesterone mainly. So what we'll see is those hormones will start declining. So women might say that their menstrual cycle gets off track. They'll start noticing emotional changes, feeling more tired, more emotional, more irritable sometimes. So around that time, so that's the main difference, is that the ovaries kind of start decreasing the production of those hormones.
Okay.
And symptoms will follow depending on that person, on that woman's overall health as well. So it's not the only factor, but it is the main factor that we'll look at for menopause. Yeah.
Excellent. So, key signs that what are the first things that we should be looking for?
So the first thing, symptoms of perimenopause, premenopause, menopause, symptoms outside of the menstrual cycle can look like a lot of different things, right? Depression, fatigue, changes in metabolism, changes in libido, all kinds of changes like that can happen. But the main thing that we'll notice that will indicate, okay, we're starting to see more hormonal changes, are definitely changes in the menstrual cycle. So we'll see them get longer, a lot more time. So women will say like it gets spaced out, 2-3 months. It's a little bit more erratic. That can happen, and can sometimes women will say that their period is a little bit heavier or more intense for a few days. And of course, like, this is really generalizing everything. This is not every woman.
Right.
Every woman goes through everything the same. Some women their period will just stop and that's it, right?
Imagine. Yeah.
Sounds kind of
But
magical.
typically what we'll see, we'll look at, age, average ages. Of course, that varies too. But we'll see changes in the menstrual cycle.
And so when you identify what is changing, what then can you do? Like, the body is meant to change. So
Yes.
what is it? It's not like you're trying to reverse what's happening.
Not
so
at all.
what is the
Not
treatment
at
and
all.
what is the goal of it?
So the goal is, menopause is a major transition. It's a transition in our body hormonally. It's a transition in our life emotionally. That the 40, 50 age is a time in our lives when, maybe our kids are grown up and they leave. Maybe our parents are aging and we're caring for them. So there's a lot of changes happening at the same time. So a lot of different stressors on the body. So our goal then is to kind of look at everything holistically, because every stress is going to impact how our body is going to respond. Right? We look at the body holistically. We can't isolate anything. So our goal then in treatment is to help ease that transition, help support women through that transition, help with their hot flashes, help with their emotional changes, help with their insomnia maybe. And we also want to kind of always keep in the back of our minds, what do we want to do preventatively to maintain good health past the menopausal years? So these are the years also where we want to start thinking about that, like, how should I be exercising? How should I be eating? Is there any nutrients specifically that I should really be focused on? These kinds of things.
I'm going to throw a question at you that I did not prepare you for, but it's actually
Yeah.
something I heard this week. And mentioning diet, I was listening to an interview with someone who's very big on the intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And she said she totally reset herself from perimenopausal back to, being a healthy, happy 30-year-old with doing intermittent fasting, and she's in her 50s. Is that something that you would generally recommend to people to do?
Intermittent fasting has a lot of really good research on metabolism, on blood sugar balancing, on energy, there's some research on that, on like vitality. I don't recommend it to anyone because for some people it can be too hard on the body if we're looking at blood sugar balance. So some people need their breakfast and need to have that food in the morning.
Food, yeah.
So intermittent
Yeah.
fasting, we read and hear a lot of really great things about it. It's not for everyone. Sometimes we need to ease into it. Sometimes it's just not the best thing for that person. But definitely possible if that woman had those results. Being 50, her body is going through that transition still, so her hormones won't return to what they were when they were 30. It's probably helping her, it may be helping her a lot with those symptoms, keeping inflammation down, keeping her, a lot of things in balance more.
Okay, that is interesting. And again, that's not something I could ever do because if I don't eat within 20 minutes of waking up, I'm out for the day. It's just not going to happen. So intermittent fasting isn't something that I would try myself, but I know for a lot of people, my mom, for instance, has, like, she went into perimenopause, feels like very early in her life, and she's been dealing with hot flashes like crazy. Is there any, like, immediate ways that you could stop hot flashes, or like, you can't stop them from happening, but is there a way besides fan yourself,
besides fanning yourself,
to cool yourself,
ice cubes?
Yeah, exactly. Just keep a cooler with you at all times so you can just drop ice cubes down your shirt
for like immediate relief of hot flashes. So we'll not necessarily look at that. Like sometimes, using those immediate solutions is the best thing. What we'll look at doing more so is help reduce them or eliminate them completely from happening. So and diet does play a big role in that. So we'll look at diet. So something that I generally recommend is avoiding trigger foods. Common ones are sugar, caffeine, alcohol, all the good things.
I was just going to say
all the good things.
All those.
And making sure that our blood sugar is balanced throughout the day. So having protein with every meal, kind of reducing our carb intake sometimes, which a lot of women find they become more sensitive as they approach menopause. We'll offer some things that we offer in the clinic that we've seen great success with are acupuncture. We'll use some herbal support. We'll use some nutrient support, vitamins. If those are, if we find that we could use that support, we'll look there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this all based on like blood tests in terms of deciding where hormone levels are, or nutrients that might be needed? Is that what?
So sometimes when we're looking at using herbs or when we're looking at using certain treatments, knowing what hormonal levels are can give us a lot of really beneficial information that will really help us target what we're treating rather than guessing like you have hot flashes, so let's support this. So that testing really gives us, the information. If we're using acupuncture, we'll base it on traditional Chinese medicine and how we're going to determine. So we're going to be looking more at a symptom picture of what's going on. Of course, like being working in healthcare, trying to guess, like testing, like it gives us that extra piece of information that may be the extra piece of the puzzle that we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely, because there obviously is many times that things would get missed.
Yeah.
By just literally just scanning somebody. You obviously don't know if their vitamin D is down or their B12 is down. Or
exactly. None of us are able to guess these things, right?
Yeah. Wish you could.
I know. If we had like some sort of X-ray vision that that would be incredible, but that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, exactly. So if someone was to come in and see you, what are some things that they would see happen around the clinic besides like what's the initial consultation look like?
So with a naturopathic doctor, what we'll do is we'll go through someone's health concerns. So women, well, since we're on the topic of menopause, women will come in with the symptoms that they're feeling. So usually you'll have a reason that you're going. And so women will say like, I just don't feel like myself. I feel like I'm falling apart. Or they'll say, I can't sleep, or I have hot flashes. These kinds of things. So we'll talk about those things in great detail. When did they start? What are symptoms like? Well, we always go through a health history. What else is going on with their health? So we're looking at other things that could be impacting them. So say someone comes in and they're working 70 hours per week, not sleeping, have major stress. That's definitely going to have an impact on their symptoms and how they're feeling. So we'll look at that. We'll look at their kind of what their diet and lifestyle look like, and we'll go from there. Someone would come and they have something in mind for treatment that they're looking for. Someone may really want to try acupuncture. Someone may really want to try IV therapy. So we'll definitely work together with each individual patient to decide on what they want to do, what's going to work for them. So we can create this really beautiful diet plan, but it doesn't work for them necessarily, or ask them to come in for acupuncture every week, but they work out of town. So we really work with every individual to decide what they want. At the clinic, we also offer counseling. We offer holistic skin services. So we can refer inside the clinic if we find, we find that something may be helpful as well for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I've said it on the show many times, how much stress can impact someone's life. Can stress impact your hormone levels enough to upset any, or to even bring on menopause?
To affect hormonal balance, yes. To bring on menopause, it would be an extreme case.
Okay.
But absolutely. So as we go, as you know, we talked about that perimenopause, premenopausal time when our ovaries decrease their production of estrogen and progesterone, our body will still produce some, but our adrenal glands are going to take over that production. So they'll produce small amounts, nowhere near what we're producing in our reproductive years. But to some extent, they will continue producing some. The adrenal glands, they sit on top of our kidneys. They're the ones who are responsible for producing our stress hormones, cortisol. They're the ones that have adrenaline. Mm-hmm. So if we're always running off of adrenaline, we all know what an adrenaline rush feels like. When we're living with chronic stress, high stress, our cortisol production changes as well. Those adrenal glands work harder. So that will definitely have an impact, because if they're working harder, we're always we're always in that stress response, that fight or flight, then that can definitely cause other balances. So we'll always look at everything together. I come back to that word holistically, right? So we're looking for example, the adrenal glands can affect the hormones produced by our ovaries. They can affect our thyroid. So we'll look everything together, kind of at that triangle idea of how is everything working together. And I always like to include blood sugar in there. Is our blood sugar balanced? Are we, going through blood sugar roller coasters all day? Mm-hmm. Where we're having maybe high sugar diets, not eating for a long period of time, and blood sugar totally crashes, then up. So that's another stress on the body. So we really like to look at everything that could be impacting. So yeah, definitely to answer your question, high stress will definitely impact our menopausal symptoms.
Interesting. How are you feeling here? How are you feeling? Are you taking it all in, Jenna?
Oh, yes.
So, and it's not I don't say this to make it sound scary,
No.
menopause is this big scary thing. It is a big transition, but it can be, it can be managed very well. It doesn't have to be this terrible,
roller coaster ride.
Where we're with hot flashes and feeling irritable and,
But I think it's so wonderful that there's so much more knowledge that's shared now from a scientific point of, your hormones are changing this way, your body's reacting this way, than what I think a lot of people grew up thinking menopause was and had to be, and that it was just hot flashes and getting, old and, there's a very different approach to it now that is very comforting to see someone who's going to be heading into this world.
Well, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, same, you grow up and it's like the change of life, right? and everybody talks about it like it's this bad thing, but it's almost kind of like a graduation, right? Like, you've got through that part of your life and now you can enjoy the rest of your life with little to no stress.
No, it's an interesting take on it. I don't know. I don't know. Does it come with no
to
stress? I don't know.
When all is done. When all is done.
When all is done.
Yeah.
I think it just changes.
Now
what
you relax.
stress about.
Well,
And
yes.
don't you just stress about osteoporosis and all this other stuff after that?
That's a good question. How about your osteoporosis when it comes to menopause?
So these are things that we definitely want to keep in the back of our mind, because as we go through menopause, our hormone production decreases. All of a sudden, we need to keep an eye on for osteoporosis. Our risk of cardiovascular disease does increase. So there are different things that can happen. So we want to be mindful of those. That doesn't, again, this is generalized. It doesn't mean we're doomed as women. This is what's going to happen. But we do want to make sure, we want to kind of put muscles in our muscle bank. We want to build our muscles now. We don't want to think about building muscles when we're 70 or 80 years old, right? Because having a good amount of muscles keeps us more stable, helps prevent fractures. Looking at our vitamin D levels, those are definitely important in our bone health. Okay, are we getting calcium? Are we having things that are kind of maybe impacting our bone health? Like maybe someone who drinks a lot of pop, that will definitely impact our bone health, things like that, our nutrition overall. Cardiovascular disease, the same thing. Lifestyle and nutrition are always the foundation of prevention, and and maintaining health. Like, so we are going into that period, like, okay, this is the best period of my life.
Well, I mean, you sometimes wonder, right? It seems to not be so bad. Like once a month, I don't have to think about anything.
Yeah, except for that period before you get to that. where you have to, like,
Well, I mean,
all over the board.
And this is why we're having this conversation, so we cannot be all over the board.
I think all I have in my head right now is like, all I hear is that this involves a lot of needles.
None, no needles. You don't need to get. Okay, well, you don't have to get the acupuncture, or you could just close your eyes, and they.
So around acupuncture, you're not alone. A lot of people do feel nervous around the needles. Once they have them in for the first time, a lot of people will say, I barely feel them. Like, this is actually really enjoyable.
I've gotten better with the needle thing, having had 3 children.
Yes, yeah.
And you're forced to do a bunch of things. But it's still, it's not up there on my list.
Is it? Well, that's understandable.
It's that mental hurdle getting past the like, okay,
Yeah.
no, I need to do long term what is good for me, not just ignore the short thing that I might not enjoy.
Exactly.
But I think that's also one of the benefits of naturopathic medicine is that it's not a one-size-fits-all treatment. It's definitely an individualized approach. Everyone's going to have a different life story. Everyone's going to have a different symptoms, different ways, different things that they want to work on. And there's not only one treatment option. We do have a big toolbox,
Yeah.
I know we're going to have to wrap this up soon, but one thought that kind of popped into my head, and it's not exactly on the track what we were talking about though, for women who've had like tubal ligations and things like that, does that have any impact on?
Tubal ligation, no.
No, 'cause it doesn't impact your hormone part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What we'll see is hysterectomy. So women who have their uterus removed, their ovaries still there, they're not going to have a period anymore, but they're still producing those hormones. Mm-hmm. So they start wondering, like, am I in menopause? We'll see that a lot because, okay, I'm around the age, and I'm starting to have symptoms, but I don't have a period so I can't tell. Mm-hmm. Women who have a complete hysterectomy, meaning that the uterus is removed and the ovaries are removed, those women will go immediately into menopause when they have that surgery because the ovaries aren't there to produce those hormones anymore.
Wow.
So that's different. But other than that, no, like if the ovaries are still there, menopause will have its course still, yeah.
Interesting. That's a good question. That's something that I wouldn't have thought of. Okay, so we do have to wrap up. So Renee, before we go, how do people find East ND and how do they come see you?
Yeah, so East ND, we're located here downtown, just on Alma Street. We have a website, it's eastnd.ca. You can follow us on social media, so on Facebook, on Instagram, you can look up East ND Naturopathic Clinic, and you'll find us there.
They're
Absolutely.
super active on their social media and always forward thinking with what they're doing. So I can't plug them enough. Not gonna lie. So changed many things in my life for me. So Renee, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Thank you so much. And we'll have all those links in the show notes as well. And make sure you like, subscribe, listen to us on your favorite podcast app, and keep watching us on Rogers.
Bye.